There are 200 million idiots controlled by 1 million intelligent men. This is a quote by Pablo Escobar. Have you ever thought what it would be like to be a drug lord or to even be considered as a narco-terrorist? Through my research, I have learned that Pablo Escobar was more than your average drug trafficker. Some people might consider him the Robin Hood of his time. Some people even might argue that even though it was bad of him to sell drugs, by doing so, he helped support the poor people from Colombia. Today, I will talk about how Pablo's early Colombian criminal life turned him into the most feared drug lord, how his drug lord career brought much chaos to Colombia, and how his death affected Colombia. Pablo Emilio Escobar Galvina was born on December 1, 1949, in the Colombian city of Rio Negro, Antioquia. His family later moved to the suburbs of Envigado. He came from a very modest family. His father was a peasant farmer and his mother was a school teacher. From a very early point in his life, Escobar had a very unique ambition, that it was for him to bring himself up from his humble beginnings. Escobar started his criminal life by stealing tombstones and selling phony diplomas. He later on moved into stealing cars and smuggling. His prominence became known in the Marlboro Wars, where he had a very big role in taking control of the Colombian smuggled cigarette market. This would be a very valuable training ground for the future kingpin, for the future narcotics kingpin. One of the most feared cartels in history was founded by Pablo and other members, and it was called the Medellin Cartel. This business was originally founded by Jorge Ochoa and Jose Gonzalo in 1977 to smuggle cocaine to the US. Later on, Pablo Escobar and his cousin Gustavo Galvina joined the group after gaining a reputation from stealing cars and smuggling cigarettes. The last member who joined was Carlos Ledger, who bought an entire island in the Bahamas to load the planes full of cocaine to smuggle across the United States border. Did you know that Pablo Escobar had a political career? In 1982, Pablo Escobar became elected as a deputy representative of the Colombian Congress. He was part of the Colombian Liberal Party. During the 1980s, Pablo Escobar became known internationally thanks to his business becoming famous. That made his his position as a deputy representative become very shortly, because he was exposed by the members of his own cabinet, such as Luis Gavilan, and was forced to resign. His objective by joining the Colombian politics was to become the president of Colombia, but that he could have never achieved it because of his intimate relationship with crime. In 1985, thanks to his shortly period of time of him being a deputy representative and also being forcibly removed from Congress, he became known in the radar of the U.S. Drug Administration Agency, and that made him a very valuable target. In 1985, the siege to the Colombian Supreme Court happened due to an extradition treaty between the US government and the Colombian government for Pablo Escobar. This resulted in a full-on attack by the M-19 a military army of guerrilla rebels who took 300 hostages, that resulted on the death of the half of the court judges and the burned case files of Pablo Escobar. In 1991, Pablo Escobar surrendered and was sentenced to 5 years in prison on a host of charges. But Pablo Escobar wasn't done, so he made a deal of no extradition with the Colombian president, Cesar Gaviria, with the ability to be housed in his own self-built prison, La Catedral. In 1992, the Colombian government and the U.S. government tried to send Pablo to a more standard prison, and after Pablo gained word of this, he escaped through the back door of his prison easily after being surrounded by 600 army force, and he went into hiding. In 1993, a year after he escaped, he gave up his location, and a day after his birthday, he died in a shootout. After his death, the killings didn't stop. People still admired Pablo, and to make peace, the governor from Medellin blew up Pablo's home. His legacy was a bit blurred. He died as a criminal, but many people, a big part of the Colombian people thought that he did a lot of good things. For example, he built 443 houses for the less fortunate people in Colombia. He built hospitals and stadiums, and he even promoted local soccer teams. That's why the people from Colombia considered him as the Robin Hood of his time. His ultimate accomplishment was that he controlled over 80% of the cocaine being smuggled to the US. And now, as you have learned, Pablo Escobar's trouble as a youth led him to become the most feared drug lord in history, and that caused his death. He even changed the way the Colombian government operated, and he made it much stronger. Many people believe he was the Robin Hood of his time by constantly giving back to the people. Thank you.